A very good afternoon or good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you so much for having taken time out of the busy schedule and after some work to be here with us this afternoon as the BBC BE Youth Chapter. My name is Guilhem Teto. I'm the Treasurer General of the Black Business Council in the Built Environment. And I have been tasked to be the administrator of the Youth Chamber or the Youth Chapter of our organization. And I am joined in the team by my very competent technical team under the leadership of Refilwe and Sipo. I've got the office administrators that are helping us, Mfanelo and Elaine. And I've got our wonderful guests for tonight, the one and the only CEO of the CIDB, Cyril Gamede, who's accompanied by Mamunte Bungozwana, and anybody else who has joined us, who is also part of the executive and the management team of the BBC BE, and also the management team and the executive of the CIDB. Let me just say, all protocol observed. We come once again and we are invited to sit back, relax, and enjoy this particular wonderful session. As I've said, I'm going to be doing the moderation for tonight. The youth have decided to just entrust me with that role. So officially Youth Endala for tonight. I'm going to hand over to the program director, who is our Donald Gumula, that will enable us or take us through what's the purpose of our tonight's meeting. Over to you, Gumula.
Good evening, a very good evening to you all. Welcome to the third session. Sorry, can I start again? A very good evening to you all, and welcome to the third session of the CEO meetup. My name is Donald Licheni Komora. I am a founding member of the Black Business Council in the Built Environment Youth Chamber. Now, this being our third session, we started this in December last year. We started with Lady Mashau of Tewo Construction Group, a contractor of note, a grade 9 led company, black owned. And we followed by Date Richard Fries, a CEO of GAP, which is a leading in the infrastructure consulting firm. And now, tonight, we bring you Date Cyril Gamede, who's the CEO of the CIDB, which is our regulatory authority. So I would want to just touch on a few pointers why this event. One of those is that we want to link industry experts or leaders with young aspiring Black industrialists. And two, we need to learn from them, all their experiences, so that we can take over and probably do better than they did. And three, we need them to answer the questions that we've always had, because as a CEO, you know it's not that easy to find your audience. So half of the time when you request such opportunities, you find that there's a PA that you need to go through, and because of you're not being able to justify enough reasons to see the CEO, you probably won't see it. So such platforms are very key, so that all these questions that we might have had previously, we have an opportunity to ask the CEO tonight. And lastly, one of the important reasons is that we need to strengthen the relationship with industry regulatory bodies like your CIDB, both for employment opportunities for youth and also for procurement opportunity. I take this opportunity to hand back to the capable hands of Guilhem Teto, our team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bokumura Doli Wangamanda. Way. See, I'm a true African. Okay, without any further ado, let me take this opportunity to actually invite our guest for tonight. As Bokumura has mentioned, we have got this series that we started. And at the backdrop of it, we are saying that as the BBC BE, we are indeed a hybrid kind of an organization. So we're not only looking at contractors, but we're looking at the build environment professionals, we're looking at manufacturers, suppliers, trainers, you know, and then the list goes on. So we want to cover the entire spectrum. So having spoken to the CEO who was representing the construction sector, we had somebody that was representing the professionals, who's Mr. Fries. And now tonight we are having another youth endala in the name of Ubabu Gamede, who is going to talk to us about the regulation, because it's very important that if you are playing in a particular space, you need to understand the rules and regulations. You cannot take the rules of football and go and want to play them in a tennis court. Each and every one of those sports have got its own rules, and the same thing happens. So when you're talking about compliance, when you're talking about registrations, when you're talking about the CIDB gradings and all of that, tonight we are having that opportunity to get it from the horse's mouth. But we're not going to only get the technical aspect of things. We're also going to have an opportunity of speaking to him firsthand as a CEO, as a parent, as a father, as a leader, you know, to also get words of wisdom, because as young people, we just come from another chat with Sawik, where we're also addressing the young people and saying, the future looks so bright, but we are missing the young people. Where are the young people in the scheme of things? And we're availing ourselves to ensure that at least we get to speak to the young people and address them whilst we still do have an opportunity. So I'm taking that we are all very much grateful and appreciative of such an opportunity. Without any further ado, I want to do things differently this time. Instead of talking about Ubabu Gamede in terms of reading his bio, I want us to get straight into the conversation and get to know him better so that he can be able to speak. Because if we were to go to the bio, you know, some of us, when we get to this age, when we want to, something that's called a short bio is a 3-pager for that matter. So we don't want to waste time and get into that. We can be able to Google and get the CV. But let me see if Mr. Cyril Gamede is here. Babu Gamede, can you please just open your video? Let us welcome you officially. You are welcome, my leader, to this webinar. And we really, really humbly appreciate your time that you have made to come and speak to our young people today. Shooting straight, maybe let us just start off by you telling us, who is Mr. Gamede? Ubani Babu Gamede? Where does he come from? Where was he born? What has been the journey of life and until today that we are talking about Babu Gamede as the CEO of the CIDB? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Youth Endala, and also thank you very much for taking such a keen interest in the youth, because the youth is really our future, and we should be investing quite a lot in the training and development of our youth. Most advanced countries, they invest a lot in that training and development. Let me also greet the youth chamber leadership of BBCPE. Also, we've invited some youth from CIDB as well. Guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Thank you very much for inviting me. I am a township boy. You know, those days there were no suburbs when I was born. I was born at Umlazi Township and I went to school there at Umlazi Township. Those days, schooling was very fragmented. You started at a primary school, you went to a higher primary school, secondary school, and at a high school. So I did all that at Umlazi. Now, I happened at standard 8 to be in a school where the then apartheid government introduced trades at school. It was supposed to be a dead-end scenario where you do a trade either in bricklaying or in whatever you do, and then you go and work after standard 8, because those days there was something called school living certificate at that stage. Now, I happened to do welding at standard 8, as well as technical drawings. Now, what was supposed to be a dead end kindled my interest in engineering. That's really how it was kindled. And then after completing matric, then I had a keen interest in engineering. It wasn't easy those days because engineering was offered only in white universities, and you were not allowed to study in white universities. You had to write a motivation to the Minister of Education, and you used to get what was called a ministerial consent. Just didn't rock up and study there. You're not allowed to stay at rest as well. But to cut the long story short, I ended being at UCT. Now, why I was ended up at UCT, it was not because I wanted to be far from home. I was late in applying for the ministerial consent, and UCT was the only white university who could take you without the ministerial consent, and you could apply whilst you are studying. So that's why I landed in Cape Town. Otherwise, I would have gone to the University of Natal, which was closer to home. So 1986, I happened to finish my BSc engineering degree at that time. I had an interest of going a bit further. I did an MSc and then finished it towards the end of 1988. I think it was a double sort of thing at that time, because I was interested in doing the MSc, but I got my wife also at UCT. So, you know, I just wanted to stay a bit longer there with my girlfriend then. So I started working in 1988, towards the end of 1988 at Unilever. You know, Unilever was a very big employer in those days. Now, what is important about those old days, most companies, even parastatals, they used to have development programs for graduates. So if you are an engineer, you'd be trained as an engineer, and also you'll be trained as a manager. So Unilever also did the same thing. I entered what was called the Graduate Management Training Program. So they train you technically as an engineer until you are a fully fledged engineer, but parallel to that, they train you as a manager. So you choose at the end really where you want to settle. So I worked as an engineer at some stage in maintenance projects, but I ended up in production as a production manager at some stage. Now, it's very important that early development for you to develop either into a manager or an engineering manager in this particular case. Now, what is said is that you don't find those programs anymore. So the youth of today, it's important that you design those programs yourself, have a clear path of what you want to do. Somebody must help you to do that, you know, because those programs are no more available. So I then ended up being a production manager, a senior production manager. And then afterwards, I decided to then go and look for greener pastures in other organizations. But what I was doing at that time as well, I was very keen in the engineering profession. I was taking part in the Institution of Mechanical Engineering, and also I was a founder member of what was called then the National Society of Black Engineers. We helped a lot of students at the University of Natal then, those days, to pass because they were struggling in passing, and then supporting them when they started working as well. So I also then started at EXA when I was also with the Institution of Mechanical Engineering, until at some stage I was actually the president of the Institution of Mechanical Engineering. At EXA, in the mid-90s, I was also registering the mechanical engineers, because I got my PRN in 1991. So I was active in EXA, and in fact, I've just served 2 terms as a president of EXA, where we've really tried to transform EXA and make sure that it's aligned to what we require in the present day. So I've been in different industries, FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, beverages, breweries, utilities, water utilities, gaining water, mining, but I used to make mining explosives. I've been a consultant. I'm in regulation now. So I've been in various industries, and I am a very keen developer, training and developer of people. There are many people whom I've also helped in that development. My wife is an engineer, she's an electrical engineer. I've got a son who's a mechanical engineer as well, but my daughter is studying medicine. So she's the only odd one out. Now, to actually rise, it's actually important that you drive your training and development. Don't leave your training and development to your manager. Be clear what you want to do, and then you must get support from your colleagues, from other senior people, and make sure that your manager aligns you, align your program to what you are actually looking for. So I think I would stop there, and I'm glad to be at CIDB regulation. It's a different environment, but CIDB is not just regulation. When CIDB was actually conceived, it was conceived for the development of the industry, because the government then realized that there were people who were actually excluded from this industry. So its intention was development. That's why it's called Construction Industry Development Board. You know, it's not called Regulation Board. So the development was supposed to be the first thing, then regulation. But what actually happened is, if you look at the reality, is that only regulation was actually facilitated. The only budget really which has been there at CIDB has been regulation. That's why it has concentrated on regulation. But we have worked very hard last year to make sure that the minister signs a regulation which allows us to create a fund for development. So we are busy implementing that in the next 18 months, and you should see quite a lot of development then in this period. Let me stop there. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much, Babu Gamede. I will call it a very humble way of introducing yourself, you know, because ladies and gents, this is a very, very highly educated man. Iskola kasabi. If you're looking at the CV, he also does have an executive MBA from the University of Cape Town. There is a BSc Mechanical Engineering, an MSc Industrial Engineering, certificate in corporate governance, and an advanced diploma in labor law. He's also a registered professional, you know, in the engineering space. So we are talking to a wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience, and a wealth of life. I'm sure, as we heard, when he matriculated, when he went to school, I think half of you were not even born. The young people that are here thinking, yo, it is such a long time ago. But I'm glad, and I must say that you have kept yourself very, very well. You're looking very young. Let nobody tell you that you're older than 35. You are allowed. Okay, thank you so much, Babu Gamede, for that brief introduction. Before we actually kick off and get to the gist of what we would like to discuss with you over and above yourself, please allow us to introduce our video about the Black Business Council in the built environment. As I have said that we are a hybrid kind of an organization, but we also do have a youth chapter that we are currently promoting, We're urging the young people to become members of the youth chapter. We are going to be having a conference, mini conference, and an elective AGM in the next coming months. So look out for it, but it's only for members that are in good standing. Ref, can you please have the video, please, so that our people can see what we do at the BBC BE Youth Chamber. There is no sound.
So at the BBC BE Youth Chamber, as a young professional, you're exposed to seasoned professionals that can act as your mentors and guide your professional career.
Being in the fold of the BBC BE, you are exposed to a lot of industry experts, whether it's consultants, contractors, and material suppliers.
BBCBE for approximately 6 months. It's been a wonderful journey filled with wisdom and great opportunities. The BBC BE Youth Chamber has direct access to industry regulatory bodies. Help Desk assists members with a wide range of challenges experienced in the industry. The BBC BE Youth Chamber offers free site audits for members who enter the BBC BE Annual Health and Safety Awards. Pre-approved credit facilities from Builders Warehouse, discounts and bulk buying options exclusive to BBC BE Youth Chamber members. 2.5% global discount loaded onto the member's cash or credit account when opening an online builder's profile. Free project management training, rate build-up, and how to tender courses for BBC BE members. The BBC BE Youth Chamber offers various industry-related workshops, seminars, and roundtable discussions throughout the year, so that members can benefit from these information sharing and networking sessions. We offer a variety of construction and occupational health and safety training courses that are nationwide and are fully accredited, as well as mentorship programs. The BBC BE Youth Chamber promotes intertrade amongst its members and shows support for its members' companies. Pre-approval for public liability, construction performance guarantees, and professional indemnity from Lireko Brokers Pty Ltd, exclusive to all BBC BE members. There are also networking opportunities.
Thank you very much, Ref. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we work hard, but we also play as hard. So we want to encourage every young person who is here to please don't just come to our webinars, but also just take time to join us, because we need you. This country needs you. This built environment needs you, because the only people that can be able to do the change and provide the change that this country needs so much is the young people. I have got a quote here that I was reading earlier on for the SAWEC members, and it reads, young people should be at the forefront of global change and innovation. Empowered, they can be the key agents for development and peace. So we're not just talking about South Africa, we're not just talking about your family, but we're talking about the global environment that needs you and your input. Therefore, it's important that you actually do participate and make the change that you want to see. Remember, nothing for the young people without the young people. Having said that, let me go forward and continue with the program for tonight. And I think I need to do some acknowledgement. Otherwise, I will be shortchanging myself and actually sacrificing my future of existence if I don't do my acknowledgement. And I'll start with the BBC PE leadership that is present here with us. We've got our CEO, Mr. Gregory Mufokeng, the one who was doing the get down for real. I hope he can still be able to do that. And then we've got our Deputy President, Ubaba Utedi Masimeni. And in our midst, we also have got our senior stalwart of the BBC PE, Wabo Christiane. I just want to acknowledge them. And then from the SAWIC side, I see we've got the acting SG, who's also one of the young people in the leadership of the National SAWIC, Ufeziwe Bagu is also in our midst. From the CBE, we've got Umama Umapefo Mukhodi, who is responsible for the registration of the professionals. And then from the CIDB, we've got quite a number of the executive leadership that has joined us, and we thank them for taking their time. We've got Dr. Ntebo Ngozana, who's the Director for Research at the CIDB. There's also Babu Richard Piri, who's the acting COO. We've got Mr. Enoch Masibi, the Director of Registration. And thank you, Babu Enoch. I did receive my response, 10 out of 10. Thank you. We've got Babu Jemen, is Koko Sendaos as a CIDB, the Director of the Provinces. When you want to know anything and everything that's got to do with the CIDB as an SMME, that is your go-to guy. And I've already introduced the CEO. Thank you so much, CEO, for bringing your full team. So guys, we have got all of this information in front of us, and we must take this opportunity and maximize, because not every day that you find yourself sitting in the midst of the exco of the CIDB. Going forward, we are proceeding with our program. Before we even continue with the interview that we had already started with the introduction of the CEO, I'd like to request my team to please play just a short video clip that speaks about the CIDB, so that those of us who might not necessarily even know who CIDB and what do they do can have a glimpse of a high level of what the CIDB is all about. Thank you. Over to you, Rev.
There is something quite profound in creating a structure. To plan a development from the ground up, to bring a vision, a dream to life. Our vision is to be a transformed construction industry that is inclusive, ethical, and contributes to a prosperous South Africa and the world. Transforming blueprints into reality. From the very first brick to the last high beam. From simplistic skyscrapers to complex architectural designs. Functional facilities to innovative technology. We build to connect communities and integrate cultures, to bridge the divide. We build to uplift and empower. We build to enhance the lives of ordinary citizens and ignite the passion of our nation. Our mission is to regulate and develop the construction industry through strategic interventions and partnerships. The CIDB is ready to assist, register, develop, and create concrete relationships for the building industry. With a national footprint reaching to all corners of our country, we fulfill our mandate by providing strategic leadership, by establishing and promoting improved performance and best practice, by promoting uniform application of policy, and by establishing registers to regulate and monitor the performance of the industry and its stakeholders. For more information, contact the CIDB National Hotline on 086 100 2432 or visit our website at cidb.org.za. You may also direct feedback and queries to cidb@cidb.org.za, and our anonymous fraud line can be reached at 0800 122 432. Developing our construction industry, one brick at a time.
Thank you, team. We are proceeding with our meetup series. And today we are in the midst of the CEO of the CIDB, Mr. Cyril Gamede. Maybe just to catch up, before we started with the interview, Mr. Gamede did introduce himself, and we have gone through his CV as well in a nutshell. But there are fundamental items that I picked up from his journey that I would like the young people to also take into cognizance. The fact that today's young people have got so much access to information, to opportunities, to schooling. When you hear Mr. Gamede's story, you can see that in the olden days, it was very difficult. Getting educated as a young child in this country was not necessarily a right. It was more like a privilege. For the fact that for you to even go and study a particular course, you need to get the ministerial approval. Oh, wow. I think we really, really need to appreciate the fruits of the liberation and remember those people that have actually gone through. Some of them have even died for us to be able to get this liberation. So the fact that we are here today is not by default, but it is by design. So it becomes very important to ensure that the opportunities that are lying before you as a young person, you maximize on them. And the ball is in your court as a young person. I want to continue with our discussion and our interaction with Babu Gamede. Babu Gamede, my next point is going to talk to, I think it's going to be part of your presentation, because we have got a lot of young people here. Some of them are SMEs. Some of them want to enter into the business space. And they would like to know about the CIDB because they get to be told about the CIDB. So I'm going to request that you take us through what is the CIDB and what role does it play in the space of the built environment? So I don't know if you'd like to answer that one with a presentation, or do you just want to speak from the cuff?
Right. Thank you very much, Auskili. I would like to do this through a presentation, and then there will be some discussion time as well, so that we can pick up those things which were not in the presentation or which need further clarification. But the presentation, it's got many slides, but I will be jumping some slides because I don't want us to concentrate on the presentation. This presentation will be shared with you, so you can have enough time to actually go through that. Yeah. Now, the first thing, let me. Why is it sticky? Let me. Right. Right. I think the first thing here, I think what we need to just appreciate is that in South Africa, youth is defined as 14 to 35. But if you look at the stats in South Africa, people who are below 45 are 66% of the population. And that was in 2016. So we need to really invest in youth. That's why I'm actually excited about what the BBC BE is doing with the Youth Chamber. But let's really go to CIDB. One of the things which is important is that CIDB does have a space in the Constitution. So there is a constitutional mandate in Section 22. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but the Constitution says every citizen has a freedom of trade, occupation, or profession, but the profession can be regulated, and therefore CIDB Act regulates the profession. Now, these are the things which CIDB needs to do, but I will summarize them into two. CIDB regulates the construction industry and develop the construction industry. So those are the two major areas in which CIDB is actually playing. Now, since one of the things which was needed in this conversation, it's the startup advice to startup of business, especially to the youth. Now, one of the challenges in South Africa is that we have learned shortcuts, so if you really want to start a good, sustainable business, you must comply with the law. Register with the CIPC. Most people do that, but they don't do all the other things. So you must register with tax, with VAT, if it's needed, UIF, COID. Open a bank account, register with CSD, register if you are in construction, you must register with CIDB, appoint auditors. It's very, very important because there are many doors which are closed if your books are not clear. Appoint your auditors in your business and then also have an address. There are many businesses which actually don't actually have an address. Now, why CIDB is there is that in the Act, you cannot undertake any construction work in the public sector if you are not registered with CIDB. So you have to register if you want to play in that area. Also, the public sector, if it gives you work and you are not registered, it is also an offense to actually do that, and they can be fined themselves. Now, what we have at CIDB is what is called the Register of Contractors, where you actually have to register so that you can actually play in this area. Now, there are some exemptions in registration. Joint ventures, you don't have to register, but each company must be registered, which is part of a joint venture. If you have not been behaving well and Treasury has banned you, we are not going to register you as well. So if you are just a labor broker as well, you are not a contractor. If you are supplying only material, you are not a contractor, you are just supplying material. So you don't register. Now, if you look at the register of CIDB, we've got 9 grades, and each grade has a limit of work which it can do. So if you are in grade 1, if you look at the right-hand corner, the yellowish one, you can only do work up to 500,000. Before 7th October, you could only do work of 200,000. So all the limits have been revised. If you look at grade 8, they could only do work up to 130 million, but now they can do work of up to 200 million. So those have been revised to make sure that it's meaningful when you participate. Now, there are also classes of construction work. GP is general building, CE, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, building, and you can also have electrical engineering in projects or infrastructure. And then you also have specialized works. And there are various kinds of specialized works. There are 15 of them. You can read them at your own leisure. Now, this is really the important part. So if you are in grade 1 and you now want to progress a bit further, therefore you need to be graded. We need to see whether you are ready to go to the next level. There are basically two things which are looked at. It's works capability. We look at your largest completed project in 5 years. What was your largest completed project? So you need to be clear on that. And then the next one is financial capability. So we look at the best annual turnover. What was your best annual turnover? And then we also look at your available capital. What is your cash, for the 2 years preceding the application? Do you have cash to actually do the work when you are supposed to do it? So there are two things. It's capability and it's financial capability. It's works capability. Now, that slide looks very busy, but it's actually not that very busy. So if you are, say, you are now in grade 1 and you now want to go to grade 2. Now we're looking at two things there. Your turnover, what was your best turnover? And we look at your largest contract. So if you want to move to grade 2, you must have done a contract of 130,000. So it's not a very big hurdle. But if you want to go grade 3, you must have done a contract of 450,000, your largest contract, and your annual turnover should be 1 million, and you should have available cash of 100,000. So that is actually how you navigate your way in getting to higher grades. You can work out that table depending where you are and where you want to go to. Now, here are just the details. It's greater details of how we actually mark you through. So when you put your application, those are the things we do, but I've given you a summary of actually what you need. So I'm not also going to go through that detail. Now, also there is a concept of what is called potentially emerging enterprises. Now, it's a way of trying to make sure that people actually develop faster. So if you are a grade 7, if you are in this program, you are able to do work in the next grade. So you'll be able to do work in grade 8, although you are not necessarily yet grade 8. There are certain criteria for you to be an emerging enterprises, but that one, it helps you to actually progress faster. Now, there are requirements in registration, like everything has rules. In grade 1, the only thing you need is actually various documents to actually prove that you are properly registered for all the things which are actually needed. So in other words, we don't test in grade 1 whether you have done projects before. So as long as you had the documentation, basic documentation which is needed, then you are registered. Now online registration for grade 1 is available as well. So we are moving to online registration in grade 1 so that you don't go and queue for hours at CIDB. Now, when you look at various applications, some people, when they apply, it's because they want to upgrade. Some, they are adding other classes of work. Maybe a person does civils, you now want to do mechanical. Some wants to even downgrade. Because of economic challenges, some people feel that at a certain level, there's more work, and then they downgrade as well. Now, online registration, I've said that there is now a online registration, but let me just spend a little time in online registration because that's the entry point. You need a CSD number for you to register on online registration. You need an email address because there need to be some correspondence. You need a mobile phone because there will be an OTP PIN which will be sent to you. And you also need a bank card with money inside, because if there is no money, you cannot complete the transaction. And this is just available in our website. And we also give support over the phone, or even if you come at CIDB. The nice thing with this online registration is that as soon as you have done everything, all the steps, you are registered immediately as soon as you finish doing everything. So we encourage people that they use online registration, not just for COVID purposes, but it's actually quicker for you. Now, I've said with grades 2 to 9, if you want to upgrade, there are things which are required. But I've said there are two things we need from you, is your track record and your financial records. So I'm not going to go to the details of this, of how you submit those, but those are the two things we actually need and we actually scrutinize. Now, unfortunately, we need fees from you when you actually register. So those are the administration fees for different grades. But if you are grade 1, you only pay 450 rands, and that is valid for 3 years. But grade 2, you'll pay 450, and then annually it's 250. So that's how our fees are actually structured, and you can see they are not too much from my side, I can say so. Now, in terms of what we do, we actually give ourselves turnaround time. Now, if you are doing grade 1, but you actually come to our office, with paper, it's supposed to be 48 hours. In 48 hours, you should be registered. But if you do online, you are immediately registered. Now, grade 2 to 9, it's 21 working days turnaround time, and each registration is valid from a period of 3 years. So after 3 years, you need to restart the process again. So there are mandatory requirements which you need to do. So every 3 years, you need to restart the process again. And also there are things like, tax clearance, contractor license, certificate, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to bore you with details, but all those requirements you need to adhere to. So if you don't adhere to the requirements, you can be suspended, or your registration expires, and you can end up being deregistered as well, So you need to make sure that when you register, you have all the requirements in terms of financial statements, et cetera, and all the documentation must be correct. So thank you very much. I tried to go as fast as possible in there, so we can go to the next level of question time. Thank you very much.
Really galloped through the presentation. Thank you so much for the effort. And maybe let me also speak to the members or the attendees and mention the fact that we are still going to have follow-up. We need a proper workshop and a full workshop with the CIDB, so that at least we spend at least 2-3 hours and we toss and turn and ask the questions that we want to ask. As for tonight, we wanted to have this introductory meeting and also to have an interactive kind of a session. So despite that, we also thought that it's very important that at least the CEO gets to touch on some of the issues that could be thorny in us being able to deal with the CIDB. Let me also take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Candice Hussein, who is sitting in the office of the CEO. Thank you so much, Candice, because we know that you are either the doorkeeper or the door opener, and had it not been for you, we would not been able to have this opportunity with Mr. Gamede. So we appreciate your effort, my sister. Thank you so much. Let me go straight to some of the questions that we have received and maybe also in line with what you have presented. I've got a question here that comes from Makomo Sena. And Makomo Sena would like to know, why does the CIDB not have a trade test examination for contractors intending on entering in the construction sector? Do you want to respond to that?
Yes, thank you very much, Auskili. Now, in the construction sector, as well as consulting in the built environment, there is no legislation that compels owners or shareholders to undergo a trade test. So you are not. However, the employees who work for a construction company may be required to hold specific trade tests. So if you are actually doing wiring in that organization, what is needed is that you must have a wireman's license. So you don't, if you are a shareholder or you are owner of the company, but it's only the people who are under you who are needed to do that.
Okay. Thank you. I've got another question that came from Mohadi, because there are some people that really forwarded their questions before we started with the webinar. And that's what we encourage most members to do, so that at least we come to this webinar having been prepared in one way or the other. And Mohadi, that's what I was asking, CIDB, please advise on the implementation plan for the upcoming ROP for the corporate and private sector. How will it be enforced? And I just want to trump on that question that is talking to the record of projects, because you find that in your presentation, you indicated that there are certain contractors that are mandatory to ensure that they register, and there are some that are not mandatory. Like, for instance, some of those are the labor-only subcontractors. But in some cases, you find that that labor only is quite a substantial amount, and somebody would like to really use that to upgrade themselves. So what's going to happen now, especially in this case where we're talking to the SMMEs that would not necessarily know if the contract has been, or the project has been registered with the CIDB? What will the CIDB do to ensure that the SMMEs are not disadvantaged because of the failure of the developers and also the clients to register the project?
Right. Thank you very much for that question. Now, the register of projects is quite a thorny issue because there is very low compliance even in the public sector. In terms of the Act, all public sector organizations and departments are supposed to register their projects in the ROP. But the compliance is around 40%. So we are embarking on a campaign to make sure that we report those SOEs or government departments to their ministers, to all parliamentary portfolios. Okay, all right. We need to make sure that we report all government departments who don't comply. Now, if you look at the private sector, the compliance is close to zero. It's zero. They don't want to comply. But at the same time, they actually like to get public sector projects as well. So what we have done is that we have approached the private sector to say, look, going forward as CIDB, what we will be doing is that we are not going to recognize projects which are not registered in the ROP. So when you are a contractor and you want to upgrade yourself and the project was not registered, we're not going to recognize it. But the contractor would say, yeah, but this is unfair because it's the client who's supposed to register. But you have an onus to report that client because by law, they are supposed to register that. So if you get a project and the client is not registered, the project is not registered, the first thing you must ask from the client, is this project registered? If not, I'm reporting it to CIDB. So it's actually a win-win situation if we do that. And we hope that it will improve. Now, once all projects are registered, it's easy to even track transformation because nobody hides those projects. At the moment, you don't know how many projects are being implemented. You don't know how much transformation happens when projects are implemented. But once we see all the projects, then we can drive transformation properly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mende. I just want to talk to something, especially with regards to this recognition of projects that's going to be up and coming. One believes that the CIDB is the regulatory body. And one believes that as a regulation or regulatory body, CIDB is supposed to have the teeth that bite. But from what is happening, it seems like the CIDB does not necessarily have the teeth in this regard, because I don't understand how can a regulatory body fail to ensure that there is a implementation of what you guys are articulating to a point of even shifting that to the contractor. And I'm just going to be practical in this regard. When somebody is tendering for an opportunity or somebody is being given an opportunity, most of the time with the SMMEs, they can hardly even read through the contract, let alone going to question the client. Because especially in the private sector, somebody will ask you, do you want the job or do you want the CIDB? Now, I'm just imagining having that wheelbarrow brigade or a buggy brigade for that matter of a grade 2, grade 3, or even grade 1 for that matter, that is supposed now to go and ask this big company whether are they registered. So if they're not registered, what does it mean? Does it mean that somebody must just turn down that project? If they inform the CIDB is still going to go to Parliament before they come back. What is it that needs to be done to ensure that the CIDB has got the teeth, and not just the teeth, but the teeth that are sharpened enough to ensure that they bite, and they bite badly to the people that are not compliant to the CIDB regulation?
Right. There are two approaches which we will use there. You see, we actually can change certain regulations without changing the act, to make sure that probably when there is a project, for instance, there is a space as it starts. There is a space where that situation is forced to actually have a registration number, an ROP number, for instance. So not so that we don't burden the contractor, but the form itself of engagement between the contractor and the client, it forces that part. And also we are in the process of revising the legislation itself so that we can have bigger teeth and sharper teeth. But even before the legislation is revised, through regulation, there are certain things you must actually do. And you must also know that some of the things have been there, but we have been a bit too nice. So I've told my team that we don't have to be too nice now. Let's make sure that we drive transformation, and you can't just drive it when you are too nice.
I agree 100%, because we believe that transformation actually comes at a cost, be it the sweat or the blood, or even the financial cost for that matter. But being nice is not actually the cost that you're looking for. So we're looking forward to a more decisive team and a more decisive application of your regulations. Because if you are empowered, after all, and we are trusted, we're entrusting the CIDB on the D part, which is the development part. And that will lead me to my next question as CEO. And somebody is actually asking that CIDB is Construction Industry Development Board, which means it has got a developmental responsibility. Now, there's a question there from Pule Mokwena. Says, CEO mentions that the role of the CIDB is not only regulation, but was originally set up to focus on development and industry. What are the current development projects under its banner, especially considering the ever-changing and challenging regulatory environment?
Right. Currently, the development which we have is not to the level we want it to be because of the financial constraints. We have contractor development programs which we do in all provinces with various government departments and some SOEs in various provinces. We facilitate that. The SCM or procurement related development, we also do it. Also the understanding of the act, how people must deal with the act, we do it. But where we have actually been lacking is on the skills development as well as enterprise development, because that needs quite a substantial amount of money. But what has happened is that we did make a proposal in terms of regulations 5 years ago. So no minister has really signed it before. So one of the things which have been happening in Parliament is that they would ask me and say, why are you not developing? I say, because the regulations are not signed and they haven't been signed for 5 years. That's very career limiting, but at my age, I can sometimes speak the truth because, I'm a bit old. But, we did give a lot of pressure to DPW to sign the regulations. Now, the regulations now are signed, which will enable us to do skills development and enterprise development. Now, how that will work is that with all the new projects which are implemented by government, is that there is a percentage which CIDB will take and they will use that money for development. So you can appreciate that you need a lot of work to make sure that you tax those people, because it's a form of tax and they will start trying to dodge it as much as possible. So we're putting systems in the next year or so to make sure that we can get that money and then accelerate the development of skills as well as enterprise development. So we do development, but it's not enough. But now with this project assessment fee, we are going to be doing accelerated development.
All right, thank you, Babu Gamede. I take it that the CIDB does have a framework and it also does have the practice note that speaks to the contractor development program framework. And that has also been supposed to be utilized by the public sector. But we find that the enterprise and skills development programs are very, very rare to find. If they do come, they're just quick to collapse and don't necessarily yield the return on investment that the client are putting in place. So now that you have assured us that it's going to be a new normal in the CIDB, we definitely are going to keep our eyes open and our ears on the ground, and would like to confirm and also to commit that as the BBCBE, we are committed to assisting and supporting the CIDB over and above us being represented and taking part on the National Stakeholder Forum. So we are together in this because transformation is everybody's responsibility. I see here on the chats, there is a response to the question that I was asking with regards to the defaulters when it comes to the recognition or registration of projects. Mr. Enoch Msibi here is telling us that any client that fails to register the projects awarded on the ROP are reported to the Auditor General, and a fine of 100,000 can be imposed as per the regulation. So I'm taking it that this is going to be applicable to the public sector. I'm not sure how is that going to be done with the private sector, because the private sector is not necessarily being audited by the AG of the country because they use their own private auditors. We cannot run away and shy away from the fact that the public sector is actually the biggest employer, and therefore most of the employment contracts and also the contracts of infrastructure will be coming from there. Moving right ahead, I am reading another question that is coming from Refilio Lisufi, and he's asking, CEO, please explain how the CIDB register of professional services providers will work. This is very interesting because not only are we talking about the contractors, but we also need to make reference to the professionals. What is happening with the professionals? Are they going to be registered? Are they going to be regulated the same way? And if yes, there's a question out there that says, how is it going to work?
Thank you very much. That one is quite controversial. There was an attempt a few years ago to register professionals, but there was a complaint that there was not much work done in the registration of professionals. All what happened was to regurgitate the regulation of contractors. It was just transferred to professionals. Now we therefore need to start afresh. We are starting the consultation. We'll be consulting the built environment industry to say, how do we register professionals? Because professionals complain that if you look at consultant, everybody is a consultant these days. You don't need any qualification. You just need connections. So how do we then go about doing that? We will be consulting and make sure that we put a framework which in its essence, it must be developmental. We must be saying that when we do this, it will be developing the professionals and then regulating them afterwards. So that is really the approach which we will be taking. Obviously, the pace of consulting also depends on the industry itself. But we would like to actually accelerate it this year. And I'm hopeful that before the end of this year, we should have something concrete.
All right. I'm very, very happy as CEO. We're having a very, very interactive and very busy chat. So it means that the people that are with us are not sleeping on the job. They're actually here and they're listening attentively. And thank you for the explanation that you're currently giving. Attendees, can you also look at the chat groups that are on the side? And if there are some of the questions that have been asked, you'll find that some of the executives from the CIDB are also providing answers there and then. So some of the questions may be answered on the side chats. So please do keep an eye and a look out on those ones. I've got another follow-up question here, and this one is actually maybe from somebody who's your peer, because the CIDB Act 38 of 2000 has been revised for time immemorially, 15 years on, and it has not been revised for relevance. Your comment, please. Why is it that this CIDB Act does not get to be revised? Honestly, it's been there for long. There's just regulations and practice notes that get. Why is it that we cannot review this entire, or overhaul it if it needs to be overhauled?
I'm glad to say that the current administration has taken a very keen interest in the revision, in the overhauling of this act. We are currently working overtime with the department, and it's really progressing very well. There was a stalemate because it started 5 years ago, and somehow it wasn't moving, But now it is moving. The department is serious. The state law advisor as well is very active. And we've also changed those things which are very thorny, because when you find people for 100,000, for instance, 100,000 in a grade 9, who's grade 8, who's doing up to 200 million, it doesn't mean anything. If it's a contractor or a client, an SOE who is actually having a turnover of 30 billion. So we need to have a fine, which is a percentage of your turnover, for instance. Then you are talking. If you look at the Competition Commission, their fines are related to your turnover, not just a number, So we are revising it, and I think before the end of this year, we should really have a new legislation at the pace we are actually going.
Okay. Thank you. Let me recognize the presence of our BBC BE President in that day, Paul Hole. President, you are welcome to the meeting. You are finding us already having a very nice interactive session. We are sitting on the front row with the CEO of the CIDB, Shotangeti, you know, high tea, yeah, now flight is the thing that makes the things to happen. So you are welcome, my leader. We are continuing, Babu Gamede, and thank you very much for the clarity that you are continuing to provide for us. As I've said, ladies and gents, let us also look at the sideline chats that are there, and then some of the answers are actually being put there. Now, Babu Gamede, the CIDB, much as a regulator, it is also part of the state-owned entities. So by its nature, it means that it does have some procurement opportunities of services that are required or that some of the companies can be able to afford and to leverage. Now, would you like to just take us through of what kind of services are commonly required by the CIDB? Because some people may not know there's business opportunity that somebody can be able to do with the CIDB. Can you just take us through the barrage of the opportunities that you guys might be having, and where can people get the information with regards to such opportunities?
Right. We have a website where we advertise our tenders. So if you go to the CIDB website tenders, you will find them. But you will hardly find any construction or built environment professional services there. They are very, very little. Basically, the professionals we use mainly, it's legal professionals. We use a lot of lawyers to chase people who are not complying with things. We obviously need security for the building, cleaning for the building. So those are the basic things we actually need, and some IT specialists, because we actually have a serious infrastructure network. But I think one thing which people must understand, CIDB is a very small organization. CIDB turnover, including the money we get from government, is less than 200 million. So it's not really very high. It's probably like a grade 8 contractor who can do a project up to 200 million. So in terms of the actual work in CIDB, there aren't many opportunities for built environment professionals. But there are services which we need, as I have mentioned.
Okay. So there is a bit of hope there that somebody can be able to get some opportunities, provided it's not just in your construction space. Is that correct?
That is correct. And also what will be happening also going forward is that when we now introduce the project assessment fee, we will be doing a lot of training and development, both of skills, individuals, as well as enterprises. So there will be opportunities for development. So I am saying that the built environment entrepreneurs must actually also not learn to just do the work. They must learn how to develop other people. They must learn how to transfer the knowledge, and that way they can actually access those opportunities going forward.
Okay. Given the fact that the CIDB is also the champion of the practice note, that has brought about some stir in the environment, whereby the issue now of having to use the triple PFA in line with doing what we call the fair discrimination, especially as far as the youth are concerned. Does it mean that on your tenders that you're having as the CIDB, even if it's not within the construction sector, you are leading from the front by ensuring that you've got tenders that are actually gunned or set aside, or as they call it, the preferred procurement of services from the vulnerable groups. And in this case, I'm talking the youth, women, people with disability, and the military veterans. Do you have such tenders that you guys are issuing out?
Yes, we were in that process, and some tenders, were already complying with that. The only thing which obviously disturbed us is the challenge to the PFA itself now, because it's murky waters now, whether if you do it, you are not allowed to do it, you are allowed to do it, etc. I know that there is a grace period of 2 years to change the legislation, but I think at the moment, sometimes when you talk to the CFO, he says, no, you can't do it because it's been challenged in court, So I think we are unfortunately in those murky waters, but we were actually at a good pace of that implementation.
Yeah, I suppose it's an issue also of a daring leadership and decisive leadership, because we've had several discussions also with the CIDB and the National Treasury, especially during the time of the former CPO, that they were Kenneth Brown, and a lot of issues were clarified regarding the issues of preferred procurement. But unfortunately, it is still a gray area. I don't know whether it's by design or what is happening. I'm sure that's going to be a story for another day. We're looking forward to the new procurement bill, and we are hoping that at least it will be able to give us some guidance and change a lot of things that are actually disadvantaging the agenda of transformation. Just to follow up on the issue of the opportunities that are there, I've got a question here from Pakuli Sufi, and he's asking, can the CEO clarify why CIDB has these clauses on the bids that the lowest bidder must be the one to consider when evaluating bids, irrespective of whether that particular bidder is far below the economic threshold amount, which is an estimated amount? Is CIDB aware that the application of this clause or policy kills most of the bidders, and most of them do not complete the projects as a result of their underpricing? Can this policy be reviewed as a matter of agency? An immediate follow-up question is that other problems on the CIDB policy is the one of evaluating the bids amount, but not checking the errors. The bidder is appointed on the bid amount, which cannot be corrected. Instead, the rates are adjusted. Some bidders some bidders go to the extent of not being worried about the rates. They just put in the amounts knowing that once they accept it, they will then adjust the rates. Can't we go back to the original way of evaluating bids? That is considering the amounts, checking the rates and quantities that are not changed, and make sure that the rate X quantities give us a required amount. Please, most of the contractors are not growing because of bids and underpricing. What would be your comment?
Right. I think what people must understand there is that most of the things which we do or put in our practice notes themselves are guided by Treasury. So it's really National Treasury prescripts which are dictating some of these things. Yes, the National Treasury is always inclined to the lowest bid, but you obviously as a client can have certain things which test whether that lowest bid is below the threshold, economic threshold or not. National Treasury is not going to penalize you for that, but provided you have a very good basis of saying that, no, I'm discarding this bid because it's lower than economic value. So most of those things are actually supposed to be done by the clients, but sometimes the clients are not so sophisticated. They look for shortcuts, and then they just go to the lowest bid, But you need that sophistication from the client departments as well for people to analyze all of these things and make informative decisions. But the baseline of procurement is Treasury, and we align our documents to treasury notes, but those treasury notes need to be interpreted by seasoned people the way in which the person asking the question is interpreting it. You need that level of thinking.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, washo umshulozi wathi indlela endlela isihamba. And sometimes it feels like the more we try to change, the more things remain the same. At the end of the day, it's like, Black person, what have you done that makes it so impossible for you to get over a hurdle? You get over one hurdle, is a new hurdle that gets to be created. You get over the other hurdle, there's another a hurdle that needs to be jumped. But I guess it's the life of being an entrepreneur. And unfortunately, there's also an issue of compliance that has got to happen. But I see there's a question, a follow-up question from the president. He says, surely the adjustment of bid rates and values are guided by the intended applicable contract on the particular project. I think he's actually adding to your comment with regards to the question that was asked previously. Now, this is the people that are in the space of bid evaluation, quantity surveillance, that are having a discussion over the issue of these bids and the rates. So I just want on to move to some of the questions again that I'm receiving here. There is somebody who's asking that they have applied for a CIDB grading. They have renewed their CIDB. And then what is it that is costing them? Let me just read the question as it is being asked so that I don't misquote. Okay. The question is, my question today is, how will I retain my old stages that expired? I renewed my 3-year term, but retaining my stages was an issue. How will I go about bringing back my stages? So by stages, I suppose it is the CIDB grading that they have had on various number of works, of classifications that they might have registered for. So how do they renew those ones after they've done the 3-year re-registration?
Now, if you look at the way in which I was explaining renewal and upgrading, was that we look at two things, which is your track record in terms of the projects you have done, as well as your financial standing. Now, there was a moratorium, which I think it's now almost 2 years or just over 2 years, because the challenge was that contractors were complaining that there is a slump in the economy. And therefore, if you are saying that I must have done a project of, let's say, 10 million, but there is no work, how on earth am I going to maintain my grade? So there was a moratorium on downgrading, because in theory, what should have happened was that all those contractors who did not meet those thresholds, we should have downgraded them. So there is this grace period now. So if you are at a certain grade, at the end of the 3 years, you just renew. We give you exactly what you have. So we're not going to downgrade you. So there is a moratorium in downgrading contractors.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, CEO. I want to move towards the closing of the session. Now we've got about 6 minutes to go, and I've got so many questions and so much interaction that is happening, and I'm just loving it. Part of the response to the issue of the bidding and the evaluation is coming from Mr. Richard Rapiri, and he's saying the evaluation process and regulations are aligned to the National Treasury prescripts, which is more inclined to the lowest bid in terms of the evaluation method. CIDB has provided guidance in terms of how arithmetical errors should be conducted. And if the process is done according to the CIDB standards, this will determine the best value of the award rather than the cheapest price. Yeah, but the issue of the cheapest price still refers, because in some cases, you've got what you call the form of offer. And in some cases, you find that companies go with the final form of offer than necessarily looking at the at the rates that somebody might have submitted. I've got two questions that are very short and straight to the point. I'm not sure if you'll be able, I've seen that you've attempted to actually respond. Somebody says solar licensing is expensive. And the other one says, how do I go about getting financial assistance? So do you want to share a view on that one, on those two questions?
Look, the various parts of the built environment are self-regulatory, That's why solar, they regulate themselves. And sometimes, people do gatekeeping as well, but the issue is that you choose the space you want to play, So if you want to play in solar, you must know that the hurdles are higher, and you must prepare yourself to actually overcome those hurdles, So you must pay your learning fees to be part of that club going forward. Now, the issue...
This is also one of those very rare classes of classification of works where you find the participation of the Black people. Which is also concerning, because I'm also interested in noting, why is it that we've got so many GB work classification like any other specialized areas like your plumbing, your fencing, your roofing, and all of that? Is there anything that the CIDB is doing about that? Because we've got so much saturation of registration of contractors on the GB.
Well, I think activism should really come from the industry itself, So in other words, if you feel that you want to actually go to solar, for instance, and there are blockages, that's why you have PPCPE. You go to PPCPE, you say, these people are blocking me. Please, let's penetrate this industry and make sure that it's open to everyone. So you need that activism, because people just don't open industries easily. You cannot wake up tomorrow and say that you want to do fencing around prisons. It's not very complicated to actually erect a fence. What is complicated is the gatekeeping in that process. That's what is complicated. But the various organizations should actually tackle that, because it's not a technical issue. It's a political issue, and a gatekeeping issue.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this ROP is really, really going to help us, because if you're looking at organizations such as Sandra, we find ourselves having to fight with them all the time because they lump contracts. So a contract that could be done by 2-3 lower CIDB graded companies gets to be lumped to a grade 9 because of the magnitude of the quantities of work. Things like your grass cutting, then somebody gets to be given 50 kilometers of grass cutting just to make it to be a CIDB level 7 or level 8 company, which could actually be benefiting quite a number of AMA companies in that regard. There's a question here from Lionel van Veek, and is asking, why can't we deposit registration monies in the bank?
Well, that question is clear. If you have money, you can deposit it in the bank, because the form itself, application form, has a CID bank account. So you can actually deposit the money there, or you can do an EFT if you like. So there are no impediments of depositing money.
Okay. All right, we've got exactly 1 minute to go. And like I'm saying that we've got a number of questions. So we'll send some of the questions to you via email like we did with the other lot. And from the office, we'll be able to send some of the responses to the attendees so that at least they can be able to get their responses. But we thank you so much for the time that you've given unto us for tonight, and also giving us enough time to have this interaction with you. I think it has been quite a fruitful one and very educational. Like we've said, we appreciate also the support of your executive team that is here. We're hoping that we'll have a nice sit down and have a proper workshop in this regard. But on a parting shot, the last question that I have that I'd like you to respond to as you give us your parting shot is coming from Karimu Naidu. And Karim is asking, what is your advice to young Black women around leadership skills required to allow them to take up senior positions in the professions?
Right. As I've said, let's us just rewind back because things change sometimes not for the better as we move forward. In older days, training and development was entrenched in many parastatals and in many private companies. Now, unfortunately, you don't have that standard training. So what I advise young Black professionals, female professionals, is that they must remember that they are in a space which is still discriminatory. Mm. So you cannot then say that because you are in a democracy, you are not going to be discriminated. So when you are going to be discriminated, you must prepare yourself for discrimination. Now, when you actually want to go up the ladder, you must actually ask the rubric, how do I go about becoming a manager in this organization? What are the criteria? What are the steps? Do I need to have an MBA? Do I need to attend this course? Do I need to have worked in that particular department? You must plan it as a young professional. Then you must actually then go to your manager. You must take charge of your development. Then you must actually force your manager, even blackmail your manager if you are female, and tell him that please don't discriminate me because I'm a female. I'm giving you my development plan, and you are supposed, as that is your job as a manager, to develop me. There's nothing else actually you are supposed to do be a manager, is to develop your subordinates such that they reach their full potential. So they must take development as part of what they are supposed to do. And then they must also talk to other people who have gone through that journey and get some advice and get some support. So discrimination did not end in 1994. It's still here. Even myself, when I was developing as a youngster, I remember asking myself at Unilever, I said, how do I grade? There was something called grade 21 where you are supposed to get a company car. That's all what we used to be worried about. When do I get my company car? We used to find that many whites used to take 2 to 3 years, but an average Black person, used to take like 5 years or 6 years. So I asked, how do I do it? They said, no, you must actually register as a professional. That's why I made sure that I register as a professional in the shortest time possible. But that's what they told me. When I came at the end of the period, I said, I've now registered as a professional. They said, no, we have changed. We now want a person to have a GCC, Government Certificate of Competence. That's why you see it, I have it. So instead of crying, I went and got the Government Certificate of Competence. And I came back and I said, I now have the Government Certificate of Competence. What else are you going to create now?
Yeah, the hurdle.
What else? Then I was in that mode. And they say, because you talk too much, now you are promoted. So you fight for these things. Don't expect that you are going to get it on a platter. And I always say, as a Black woman, you have a problem because you are challenged racially. You are also discriminated by your own Black men. Let's not pretend as if Black men don't discriminate Black women. They do. So you must be able to fight for your space. Grab that space. That's my advice.
Thank you. Talking about fighting, we have been fighting. Sometimes we get tight. Gamede, And I think it will be suicidal of me not to ask you about the long fight that we've been fighting with the colluders. When are you blacklisting these colluders? that stole from us? When is CIDB blacklisting them? When are they dying?
We tried to blacklist them and the government said we can't.
So it's a losing battle. So it's not going to change because now we've got our VRP program that has failed. We've got the Tirisano fund that we can't be able to access because the same colluders are managing. Oh, Jesus Christ. No, let's just leave it at that, Babu Gamede, and agree with in the land, let's see Hambayo. And blackmail, you are on your own. I'm not sure if I can say with your government, but I think for a black woman, you're actually on your own with another black sister by your side. So having said that, let me take this opportunity to thank you so much for such an informative session and thank all the attendees and the participants for the questions that they've asked because it has given us a lot of information, the words of wisdom that you've given unto us and the time that you've put aside. We know that this is supposed to be your family time because most of the time during the day you are busy maybe at work. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. This investment will not go unnoticed. We know that you are going to actually, the young people are actually going to be remembering this day someday that we had a conversation with Babu Gamede and these are the words that he had said. From my side, let me just thank you and I'll hand over to our Donald Gumula who is going to now give us the vote of thanks. Thank you, greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Gumula?
Thanks, TG. And I must say this session was so insightful. And judging by the number of questions and the depth of it, you'd realize that there are serious industry challenges and experiences. Hence, you see the question. And I really want to thank Babu Gamede for his catches available to us. When he gave his brief bio of where he started out, it's quite interesting on how people who have the most hardships actually rise to the top. Having been born in Umlazi, started out as an engineer, as a maintenance engineer, busy bonds and nuts. It does say about on how you grew from that to becoming a senior production manager of Unilever. Now, also in your bio, you also mentioned issues of being a founder member of a society of Black engineers. And that during those times, it was not easy because you could easily be interpreted as a political organization. And I must say, it's quite notable that you are a quota of note. And as well, the fact that you've once been self-employed, it shows you are a hustler of notes. And the rest of my colleagues should take pointers from that you don't need to grow. Growth doesn't necessarily come from your employers only. Also, you need to be self-driven as an individual. You also touched on issue of training and development. That as young people, we do not need to leave this to our managers or leave it to a company to avail opportunities. You need to go and access those opportunities yourself. So you're speaking of being self-driven, you're speaking of taking initiatives, and judging by what you've shared with us tonight, you've never ceased to develop yourself. Having done being EXA and today with CIDB, it shows how much you've always wanted to develop. You are also an MPA graduate. That also shows because those things don't come very easily. It takes a lot of your time to focus on those studies, etc. And now, lastly, I would want to say as well, as the BBC BE Youth Chamber, we want to actually commit to the following, that in all these youth programs that you've mentioned that the CIDB will be rolling out in months to come, we want to agree with you that we will be on your wings. The the BBC BE Youth Chamber will be on board to benefit from this contracted development, from your procurement, from the skills and enterprise development programs, all driven by your organization. And in that, I would also want to take this opportunity to thank you and your executive for availing us this opportunity. It was quite insightful. This is one of the luxuries that we benefit from being part of the BBC PE. Also, I want to thank representatives or members from the BBC, the Federation, notably Ubabupule Mkwena, and then not forgetting our sister organizations, your SAWIC, the South African Women in Construction, PPF, the Progressive Professionals Forum, and to the BBC leadership, President Hole or Prapol. We wish to thank you as well, because if it wasn't for your blessings, we couldn't have had such platforms. Today we're hosting our third webinar, thanks to you and the support and your executive. And lastly, to the young people in our majority, the future belongs to us, and that is inevitable. That's why even now I take an opportunity to reiterate that young people must sign up to become members of the BBC BE Youth Chamber so that we grow together. In those ways, I would like to say thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you guys. But before we leave this meeting, may I just request that we register our responses to the polls because we want to improve our systems. We want to improve the webinars. And we also want to see if the information sessions that we're organizing are actually fruitful and giving you some insight. By the way, this was just for the CEO meetup. We are gonna have, after next month, another series of topics that we're gonna be discussing. As I had mentioned, that the CIDB, we're not seeing them for the very last time, but we are gonna see them again in other workshops going forward. Don't forget, we have got the Youth Month that is also coming. So the youth is also putting together some very interesting programs for that particular Youth Month. So let's take opportunities that are in front of us. And you are never too young to change the world. I thank you. Good night.